Ferrari is one of those famous sports cars that only the rich and famous can afford. When these beasts are seen cruising down streets in the wild, they make even the calmest people feel like their bodies are on fire. Did you know in 2015, when it went public on the New York Stock Exchange, Ferrari was worth $10 billion? Today, the market value of the company is $30 billion. But how did it become the most successful brand? Well, stay tuned to Success Stories to find out. So when we ask, how did Ferrari become one of the most famous brands in the world, the answer looks easy. Surely it was because of how hard Enzo Ferrari worked and how much he cared. But there's a lot more to the story of these supercars than just one man. Ferrari has always been on top because of things like its famous logo and the fact that it is backed by Fiat. But first, let's begin with how Enzo created this brand. When Enzo Ferrari first saw a race car in action, the vehicle was still new in almost every way. His father had taken the 10-year-old Ferrari to a race in Bologna, Italy, not too far from Modena, where he was born. Until that moment in Bologna, the young Ferrari wanted to be an opera singer. Seeing a race, though, changed his mind and made him want to race cars instead. For this, generations of race fans are grateful, but Ferrari still had to overcome some problems before he could become famous in racing. In 1916, both his father and his brother died from the flu. World War I broke out, and soon almost all of Europe was involved. In 1917, Ferrari was forced to join the Italian military. During the war, one of the worst fights Ferrari had to face didn't even happen on the battlefield. He got the flu, the same illness that killed both his father and brother. And unfortunately, after the war, it was hard for Ferrari to find work in the car business. When World War I ended, many countries, including Italy, had many veterans who wanted to get jobs. Enzo Ferrari was one of these veterans, and because he was interested in cars, he decided to try and get a job in the car business. It was said that Ferrari had trouble getting a job because there were so many other veterans looking for work at the same time, and the Italian company Fiat turned him down. The company didn't know at the time that they were turning down a man who would later start a hugely successful racing team and car company on his own. Ferrari didn't give up, and he went to work for Alfa Romeo. The company had been around for a few years under different names, but the Museo Storico Alfa Romeo says that they stopped making cars during the war. Shortly after, Ferrari became a driver for Alfa Romeo. The factory team quickly became one of the best in the world. Have you ever wondered, how did Ferrari get its symbol as the prancing horse? Ferrari was an up-and-coming driver for Alfa Romeo in 1923 when he met the family of an Italian fighter pilot who had died in World War I. The pilot, Francesco Baracca, was an ace who shot down 34 enemy planes during the war. In 1918, Baracca was shot down and killed. Baracca's plane had a picture of a horse on it, and Baracca's family suggested to Ferrari that he put the image of a horse on his race cars for good luck. So Ferrari used the prancing horse symbol on his cars. After winning races for Alfa Romeo for many years, Ferrari started his own team, Scuderia Ferrari, in 1921. Scuderia is the Italian word for a stable, like where horses are kept. The team had its own drivers and support staff, but they mostly raced in Alfa Romeos. Through the 1930s, Scuderia Ferrari kept running Alfa Romeos. The team also ran the Alfa 158, the first car that Ferrari himself had designed. The car was a huge success, and at the first Formula One World Championship race in 1950, 3 of the 4 158s that started the race came in first, second, and third. This happened 13 years after the car came out for the first time. Alfa Romeo convinced him to shut down the first version of Scuderia Ferrari and run the Alfa factory team, which was called Alta Corse. Ferrari's reputation in the racing world was going up. This only lasted a few years, and Ferrari went out on his own when he may have realized that he had the design and technical skills to be successful on his own. He started a company called Auto Avio Costruzioni because he and his former employer, Alfa Romeo, had agreed that he wouldn't use the name Ferrari. The AAC 815 was their first car, and it came out in 1940. Any history buff would be worried about Europe in the 1940s, and the war did not spare Ferrari's new outfit. Racing was put on hold, and it was said that the company moved to where it is now, Maranello, and made grinding machines to help the war effort. In 1947, when the war was still going on in some parts of Europe, it was time to get back to racing. By then, Ferrari's agreement not to use his name had ended, so the 125S was the first race car with the Ferrari name on it. It didn't take long for the first Ferrari to win a race. It did so at the 1947 Rome Grand Prix, which was held in his home country. With wins at some of the biggest races in the world, like the 24 Hours of Le Mans and the British Grand Prix, the 125S helped show the racing world that Ferrari was here to stay. The success of the 125 helped the cars that came after it. In 1952 and 1953, the legendary Italian driver Alberto Ascari was behind the wheel of the Ferrari 500 when it won its first 2 Formula One World Championships. The famous Rosso Corsa, or Racing Red, that was used to identify Italian race cars on Ferraris got a lot of attention. This made a lot of people, even those who didn't race, want their own Ferrari. Since people wanted Ferrari race cars that could be driven on the street, it seemed like a no-brainer to give them what they wanted. But the man himself, Enzo Ferrari, was at first against making cars for the road. A driver named Luigi Chinetti was one of the first people to tell Ferrari about the idea. Rosso Automobili said that Chinetti had won multiple times at endurance races like Le Mans and the 24 Hours of Spa-Francorchamps. During World War II, he left Italy for the United States. By the end of the 1940s, he had become a naturalized U.S. citizen. Chinetti knew Ferrari from when they both worked at Alfa Romeo, and it was he who suggested that Ferrari make cars for the road. Ferrari didn't want to because all he cared about was winning races. They came up with a plan that involved selling their race cars to independent teams and drivers who wanted to race but didn't build their own cars. At some point, they started making road cars, and the money they made from those went back into the racing side of the business. Chinetti opened the first Ferrari showroom in the United States in the 1950s. It used to be in Manhattan, but it has since been moved outside of the city to Greenwich, Connecticut, where it's still running. How is Ferrari doing right now? Ferrari did sell a part of the company to Fiat, the same company that turned Ferrari down when he was looking for a job after World War I. Fiat started owning 50% of Ferrari in 1969, and by 1988 they had increased their share to 90%. But in 2016, the two companies officially went their separate ways. Ferrari stayed with the company after the sale and ran the racing team until his death on August 14, 1988. Since the death of its founder, Ferrari has continued to be one of the most famous and sought-after sports car brands in the world. This is because the cars are hard to get, and the company keeps doing well in Formula One and sports car racing. "My automobiles have a soul," Enzo Ferrari famously stated. Is he correct? Although he died at the age of 90, Ferraris continue to be imbued with the same ardor and soul that they always were, and clients both old and new are said to recognize and cherish the spirit of these supercars. And if there's one advertising device that outperforms all others, it's a feeling. Something you can't put your finger on, but has managed to make your logo one of the most effective in the world. So, this was all about Ferrari. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching.